Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today, let us study the module number 1, Applied Ecology, chapter name Introduction to Ecology, part 2. Ecological studies mainly deals with the transfer of energy and materials from one organism to another organisms and the environment. Ecological studies mainly deals with the transfer of the energy and the nutrient recycling. Energy, water, soil are essential abiotic component that enters the food chain through the primary producer, such as photosynthetic plant. The primary producer forms the base of the pyramid of the food chain, and they are subsequently eaten by the higher trophic levels such as herbivores, and these herbivores are further eaten by the carnivores, which are the secondary consumers. Interaction of various trophic levels give rise to various ecological relationships like amensalisms, neutralisms, mutualisms, etc. Complicated network of the food chain is called as the food wave. As we move up the trophic level, the energy level is reduced and the amount of the pollutants is increased. Various internal and external factors control an ecosystem, namely climate, temperature, light, precipitation. The three main approaches used by the ecologists to study are descriptive, experimental and theoretical. Ecological succession, positive and negative feedback mechanism and human interference go hand in hand in maintaining a healthy ecological environment. Learning outcomes. After reading this chapter, you will be able to first understand the process of ecosystem, intermingling of trophic levels in a food chain, food wave, ecological pyramids, concept of bioaccumulation, biomagnification, energy flow and its impact on the ecosystem. Discuss the flow of energy and cycling of materials as fundamental to the ecosystem. Functioning and indiscriminate intervention would lead to damage and disruption of the environment. Discuss the environmental impact of the human activities, and lastly but not the least, the importance of the study the ecology for a human survival. Process of an ecosystem. There are two main processes which help in functioning of an ecosystem, mainly the energy flow and ecosystem nutrient cycle, which are closely linked to each other. Trophic level. The food chain enters the linear sequence of organisms through which the nutrient and energy passed from primary producer to the higher level consumers. Species or groups of species are assigned into various trophic levels. Troph means nourishment in a food chain occupying a specific trophic level. Energy, water, nitrogen and soil materials are essential abiotic component of an ecosystem which enter the food chain primarily through the producer. Primary producer such as the photosynthetic organism constitute the base of the food chain. The primary producers are eaten by the primary consumers such as the herbivores. In this manner, the higher level of the consumers feed on the subsequent lower trophic level until it reaches the organisms at the top of the food chain called the apex consumer. However, the food chain represents only a simple and isolated relationship and represents only a part of the food or energy flow. In an ecosystem, several such food chains interconnect and forms an interconnected network of feeding relationships that take the form of a food wave. Figure 1 shows the pathway of the energy transfer. A is the food chain and B we have the food wave. The food wave can be divided into two general types. One, the grazing food wave, and second, the detrital food wave. Pollutants, especially the non-biodegradable one in an ecosystem, move through the various trophic levels and cannot be metabolized by the living organisms. Consequently, we detect a higher concentration of such pollutants when we move from the lower trophic level to the higher trophic level of an ecosystem. There are two main processes for movement of such pollutants. First is the bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation refers to how the pollutant enters the food chain, in which there is an increase in the concentration of the pollutants from the environment to the first organism. Biomagnification, on the other hand, refers to the tendency of the pollutant to concentrate as they move from one trophic level to the next. Figure 2 shows the conceptual model showing the flow of energy through the spring ecosystem in the Silver Spring, Florida. Notice that the energy decreases with each level of increasing in the trophic level. For example, the gross productivity of primary producer is 20,810 kilocalorie per meter square per year, out of which 13,187 is lost in respiration and in production of the heat. Hence, 20,810 minus 13,187 equals to 7,618, which is the net productivity. Furthermore, 4,250 is lost to decomposers, leaving behind only 3,368, which is available as a gross productivity for the next trophic level. Ecological pyramid. It can represent the number of individuals, biomass or energy at each trophic level. Figure 3 shows the ecological pyramid. The producer forms the base of the pyramid and the apex consumer forms the tip. In figure 3, it shows the relative energy in the trophic level in the Silver Spring, Florida ecosystem is shown. Each trophic level has a less energy available and a support of fewer organisms at the next level. The ecological pyramid are of three categories, which is shown in the figure 3. First, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of number and a pyramid of energy. Energy flow in an ecosystem. The energy flow from the lower, that is the producer, to the higher, that is the consumer trophic level, and never in the reverse direction. There is a loss of some energy in the form of unusable heat in each trophic level. Hence, energy level decreases from the first trophic level upward. Sun, being the primary source of the energy on earth, enters the biological system and is transformed into the chemical energy in organic molecules by cellular processes like photosynthesis and respiration, and ultimately it is converted into heat energy. As shown in the figure 5, the earth is an open system with respect to energy, and without this continued input of the solar energy, biological systems would be quickly shut down. So, in figure 5 shows the concept of an open system of our earth in reference to its energy. Biogeochemical cycle. The cycle involving biogeochemical transformation of nutrients occurs within the bodies of the organisms and enter back into the environment in the form of an inorganic state is called as the biogeochemical cycle. Nutrients are found in 4 compartments within the terrestrial ecosystem. First, in the atmosphere, second in the pool of available nutrient in the soil, third in organic matter such as biota and organic debris, fourth in soil and rock mineral. Microorganisms such as bacteria often complete this process of conversion, which is termed as decomposition or mineralization. The earth, on the other hand, is a closed system with respect to material or element or nutrients, with an exception of some foreign space bodies entering the system now and then in the form of a meteorite. Figure 6 shows the nutrient relationship of the terrestrial ecosystem, showing the sites of accumulation and a major pathway. Most nitrogen enter the ecosystem through the biological nitrogen fixation and is deposited through precipitation, dust, gases, or is applied as fertilizers as shown in the figure below. Figure 7 is the showing the nitrogen cycle. Other important nutrients include phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, potassium, magnesium and the manganese. Phosphorus, calcium, manganese and the magnesium enter the ecosystem through weathering. Acid deposition is an important source for sulfur in many ecosystems. Potassium is a primary cycle between living cells and soil organic matter. So is the manganese and magnesium. Factors of ecosystem. All ecosystems are controlled by certain factors which are referred to as internal factors and external factors. The external factors are listed below. First, climate. It is the most important external factor and determines the biome in which the ecosystem is embedded. Precipitation level. The rainfall pattern undermined the availability of water in an ecosystem. Temperature. It affects the seasonality and supply of energy via photosynthesis in a functional unit. Parent material. It is the underlying geological material that give rise to the type of the soil in an ecosystem and influence the nature of the soil present along with their nutrients and mineral contents. Topography. It controls the ecosystem process by affecting things like microclimates, soil development and movement of water through the system. It has a major role in the formation of habitat in an ecosystem. The external factors, also called as the state factors, controls the overall structure of an ecosystem and the way things work within it, but are not themselves influenced by the ecosystem. Other external factors responsible for invariable dynamic entity of an ecosystem being subject to periodic disturbances are: one is the time. It plays a crucial role in the development of a soil from bare rock and the recovery of a community from disturbance. Second, potential biota. It is the set of the organisms potentially present in an area that can also have a major impact on ecosystem. Non-native species, if introduced, can too substantially alter or shift the functioning of an ecosystem. Relationship of ecology with different subjects. It is an multidisciplinary science related with zoology, botany, climatology, chemistry, biochemistry, physics, physiology, biophysics, geology and geography, which studies the interaction among organisms and their environment. Ecology is also closely related to other biological disciplines such as evolution and epidemiology. Evolution being the study of how living beings evolved and how they are expected to change in the future, keeping in view the environmental changes. Epidemiology is the study of development of epidemics on the population and support the ecology. Ecologists require some basic understanding of the meteorology, oceanography, limnology, geology, etc. For understanding the living component, the knowledge of thermodynamics and genomics is vital. Ecology and econometrics share similar historical origin. Even sociology and anthropology have its active role in the study of ecology. Ecological relationship. Ecological relationship can be characterized by the interaction among organisms within or between the overlapping niches. Some of them are given below, like mutualism, commensalism, amensalism, cooperations, proto-cooperation, neutralism, parasitism, predation, cannibalism, competition, symbiosis, mimicry and camouflage. Figure 8 shows the patterns of population interaction. Like mutualism, effect on the species 1 is positive, effect on the species 2 is also positive. Amensalism, effect on the species 1 is the negative, effects on the species 2 is a 0, and competitions, effect on the species 1 is negative and effect on the species 2 is also negative. Importance and scope of ecology. The scientific study of ecology has grown leaps and bounds with the advent of modern civilization, which is associated with the detrimental effect of the population explosion, pollution, deforestation and many other problems that alter the delicate balance of nature for amicable existence of all the species. It also allows us to forecast predictable picture of how the human activities which affect environment over time. Ecologists seek to explain point 1, all life processes and their interactions. 2, adaptations of flora and fauna and its natural selection. 3, the energy flow and movement of the materials within the ecosystem. 4, the study of biogeochemical cycle. 5th, the successional development of living communities. 6th, sustainability and a life supporting function of dynamically different ecosystems. 7, the abundance and distributions of organisms in habitat and in ecological hierarchy and its diversity. And lastly, the ways to preserve this biodiversity from the human activities. The ecologist usually uses 3 approaches in their studies, namely descriptive, experimental and theoretical. The descriptive approach involves a detailed field observation. Experimental approach seeks information on how the specific ecosystem works. And the theoretical approach deals with the theories or a principle that govern the nature of the ecosystem. The enormous branching of ecological studies has expanded the scope of this interdisciplinary field by many folds. Ecology can also be called as the human science in lieu of many practical applications of ecology in biology, wetland management, agroecology, agriculture, forestry, agroforestry, fisheries, city planning, community, health, economics, basic and applied science and human social interactions. Mechanism of ecosystem. Ecosystems are a complex system with many interacting components which are regularly exposed to various changes or disturbances. First, succession. It is the orderly change or replacement of one community in an area by another in a specific period of time. In 1916, F. E. Clement described the theory of succession and involved the following steps. First, nudation, which is the development of a bare site. Second, migration, arrival of propagules. Third, ischisis, the establishment and initial growth of vegetations. Fourth, competition, species compete for space, light and nutrition. Next, reaction, replacement of one community by another. And lastly, stabilization, that is the development of a climax community. Depending on the force of change, succession can be of 2 types. Autogenic succession, that is the succession is the result of the organs themselves. Allogenic succession due to the external force, mainly physical force such as the storm, fire, earthquake, human interference, etc. Ecological succession can be broadly divided into 2 types. Primary succession, it is the process where succession starts on a barren ground where no community has existed before forming a mature community. For example, the invasion and colonization of a bare rock on a recently created volcanic island. Secondary succession is the process of the succession in which a mature community is established in area which have been previously destroyed by either natural calamities or human interference. For example, reclamation of the previously burnt forest or an area after limestone mining. The most important result of the succession is the increase in the species diversity and ecosystem stability. Homeostasis, that is the maintaining the balance. The capacity and the state of the system to self-regulate itself to maintain an internal consistency is called as the homeostasis. The word homeostasis is derived from the 2 Greek words homeo, which means the same, and stasis, meaning standing. Hence, staying the same is the literal translation of homeostasis. Feedback mechanism keeps the system in fairly constant rate. Biological systems in an ecosystem have a variety of regulatory circuits called feedback loops, which actually is a sequence of event or interaction in which a change or in some original state alters the rate and a direction of further change. It is divided into two types, negative feedback and positive feedback. The negative feedback inhibit or reverse any change from the original state, bringing the system back to the set point. Example, we have the population regulation. Positive feedback on the other hand lead to the further change in the same direction, taking it away from the set point and cause damage to the system. Example, we have exponential growth in a population. Figure 9 shows the positive and negative feedback mechanisms. 3. The human impacts. An ecosystem is said to be in equilibrium when all its biotic and abiotic components are in a steady state. The capacity of an ecosystem to continue at equilibrium in spite of being disturbed is called as the resistance. The study with which an ecosystem restores after being disturbed is called as the resilience. Human beings have often caused disturbances intentionally or unintentionally, and the damage can cause to such a high degree that the ecosystem loses its resilience entirely, leading to a complete annihilation and irreparable loss of the ecosystem. Figure 10 shows how human activities have impacted both abiotic and biotic component of an ecosystem, resulting in its own destruction. There are two main processes in studying the functioning of this ecosystem. First, the study of the energy flow, and second, the nutrient cycles in an ecosystem. Pollutants, especially the non-biodegradable one, enters the ecosystem and moves up the trophic level by two main processes. First, bioaccumulation, and second, biomagnification. Diagrammatic representation of the trophic level is called as the ecological pyramid. It is of three types: pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and a pyramid of energy. There is a unidirectional flow of energy in an ecosystem from the producer to the apex consumer. Biogeochemical cycle helps in recycling the nutrients endlessly in the ecosystem by the process of decomposition and mineralization. Ecology is a multidisciplinary science involving the studies of various fields of studies. Modern civilization has a high detrimental effect on the overall ecosystem of the earth. Ecological succession is an orderly replacement of one community by the another community, can be either autogenic or allogenic. Thank you.